What's going on, everybody? Oh man, last week was a huge week. I had a episode drop, a video Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Some great conversations with some of the top minds in the hobby because I am dedicated. I want to move forward with all of the craziness. And that's part of this episode. This episode today is all about what are the things that you all are most interested in given our current climate. So we're going to get into that in a little bit, and it is going to be a bit of a preview for tonight. Remember, if it's not on your calendar, it needs to be. Tonight is going to be Midlife Live number 11. I said at the beginning of the year, my goal for 2025 was one live stream per month for the year of 2025. We're in November. We're on number 11. In fact, let's take a look at that right here.
Oh boy, it's another Midlife Live. It is the week of Thanksgiving, and I am thankful for these 3 turkeys. And tonight, we will have a blast.
What's up there, liver lips?
I am excited.
And obviously, Jeff Wilson is a poster boy for the hobby.
It's not fair, but it makes sense.
I'm playing hurt, but I'm here.
Who knew that Otani was Midlife Nation?
It's extra special to me.
So you better watch out, PSA and Duke Wilson, Arenas Club, and all you other stupid idiots out there. If you're gambling, you're selling to 13-year-olds.
Let me remind everyone of the ground rules.
I know it's thinking it's fake, but I don't think it is.
No, because basically they're a cluster F down there.
Yeah, he should have kept his mouth shut.
And between that and the clap that he kept getting,
I ain't getting no bump.
you think Edmonds just picked one.
And even his apology was crap.
I don't get to talk about Shill bidding.
And he's better than me, and he had to put me in my place.
I am always on Team Tony. Always.
Thank you.
If you're gonna flex on Tony, you better fucking be right.
What are the chances that some jackass comes out, caught Shill bidding, and it just happens to be also a guy that pissed Tony off?
Little PP
It
issues.
is what
Why do we need that fourth party auction house so we can insulate P. Ryan so he can jam prices up people's ass by shilling?
No, I mean, I think show bidding, obviously it's illegal. It's also stupid.
Joe, you and I, we know it. We all know it. The whole sports card hobby knows it. That he is a scumbag, obviously. If you look at that picture, he looks like a fucking scam.
I wish that all the show bidders win the card that they're bidding on.
The kaboomies, the kaboomies, the kaboomies. It's a stupid card with a kaboomie on it.
I have feelings attached to items.
But I mean, if you could keep the guy off the booze, he'd be good.
To me, a card is as much about the story of the acquisition, about the meaning of the card. It's like if you get a special gift from a special friend, that card to me is better than a card that might look nicer.
It's like one idiot after the other.
When
How
this
could
with
you
you
not
guys-
love Beaver Feet and Clark Kent up there?
If somebody gets me a sweater that I hate, I will hang it in the closet for 15 years before I rip the Band-Aid and throw it away.
But if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, maybe it's a duck.
I know you all think I'm crazy for collecting pirate cards. I get it. The pirate card of Blackbeard in a PSA 3 sold this weekend for $5,000. Mine is in a 2. So the way I look at it is I'm basically rich now.
Rich indeed, rich with friendships. And this Midlife Live number 11 will not let you down. This will be a fun one.
Again, that is tonight, Monday, and it is going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. If you're not watching this on Monday, that means you missed it. It means it was last night or the night before. So I will have the live stream, Midlife Live 11, posted here, well, tonight. And if you're listening to this after the fact, it's already posted, so check it out. How could I go wrong with this group of guys? Some of my favorite guys, very opinionated guys, very likable guys, they're some of my favorites. They're some of my absolute favorites. We got Mike Petty, we got Tony Liebrick, and we got Darren of Return to Collecting. This is going to be a fun night. Now, this episode today, what I'm going to go through are the questions that came from all of you. In our current hobby environment, there is so much going on. There is, what do I believe about comps? What do I believe about auction houses? What's the situation with shilling? What's the situation with the economy? There are a bunch of things happening, and I want to know what you all want to talk about. And that is also partly because, remember, this week I will not have a Wednesday Q&A. So basically what we have is a Q&A on Monday that is going to be a huge chunk of what we talk about tonight. So I'm going to share a few thoughts. I don't want to give all of my thoughts away in this episode to your questions because I'm going to ask the panel about these topics tonight. But also, again, I just said Wednesday. Wednesday is usually my Q&A day, but it's not this week for a very special reason. I've been talking to you all for about a month, and I've been telling you about this collection that a viewer's godfather has. And he brought it over to my house, and we looked at it, and I asked him questions about the story. And we will hear from his words how the whole thing played out. That will post on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. Now, a couple of things to talk about there before we get into today's episode. First thing, at the end of today's episode, I will have a preview. It's about a 2-minute preview of Wednesday's episode. I will give you a bit of a flavor of what to expect of this episode. Now, the number of incredible Hall of Fame cards, pre-war cards, is absolutely mind-blowing. So the episode is going to be fairly long. I am going to show you a huge percentage of the cards in this collection. There were about 450, 500 cards in this collection, in this pre-war collection. And there is everything from baseball to boxing to entertainment to political cards to non-sport cards. There's a little bit of everything. And I'm going to show you a ton of the cards. And a lot of people have been saying, why are you dragging this out? Well, I'm finally going to share with you the reason I'm dragging it out is because the owners of the collection have been talking about liquidating it. And they've thrown around a few ideas on how they want to liquidate it. Well, a good portion of these cards, after I put them in contact with my good buddy Theo of Clemente Collector, a good number of these cards, a good chunk of this collection that's going to be in this Find episode on Wednesday is going to be on the December CIA auction, collector investor auctions, and it's you will be able to own many of them. So you want to check out the video on Wednesday because that auction goes live very soon, later this week. That auction will have the preview, and then early next week, the auction will open live. So you will actually have the opportunity to purchase some of these. So I didn't want to finalize the video and post the video until they had all their conversations. They had done their discussions about whether or not that was going to happen. And so I waited until that was sort of a done deal. And now I'm so excited to Wednesday show you that. Again, at the end of this episode will be a preview of what to expect then. Now, to the questions for this week. Again, basically a Q&A, but instead of a Q&A for me, it's a Q&A for tonight's Midlife Live panel. Let's go ahead and look at some of the topics that we will be talking about tonight and I will share some of my thoughts on them here right now.
Topic to talk about. Mangini had an interesting take on a potential market crash because we are at a ridiculously high right now. I see strong signs that the Pokemon card market is about to crash as well. I recently sold a majority of my modern slabs. If a sports card market crash is imminent, what is everybody going to do?
All right, there's a lot of meat on this bone without any question. And, John Mangini he's referring to an episode that John Mangini posted last week, which was really, really good. I will link it into the description down below. And he went into some of the news that has been coming out recently about the stock market, about the economy, about whether or not the economy is starting to show some signs of problems. And if it is starting to show some signs of problems, a lot of people's discretionary income for things like sports cards could quickly be eroded. And he gave a really good explanation, shared a lot of clips about different economic news. See, one of the things about the United States that's kind of wild is it's so big. We are an economy as a whole, as a nation, but there are also like certain areas of the economy that are affected at different times than other areas. If you live in Odessa, Texas, when the economy is kind of struggling and oil is still pumping, then they might have they're kind of a reverse of what's happening with the greater economy. If you live in an area like Hawaii, where tourists are a main driver of the economy, when the general economy is struggling, you might be hit harder than some areas. There are different sub-economies within the economy, and over the last few years, you might be in an area where the economy has done well. You might be in an area where the economy has struggled. But as a whole, it does feel like there have been a little bit more discussions recently about some layoffs at companies, about cutting costs at different companies, about cutbacks at different companies. There has been more talk of that sort of thing. The stock market is kind of in a weird spot. Some of the bigger names like NVIDIA are suddenly starting to, are they going to meet expectations? And I know that information came out last week, but their price has sort of peaked maybe. Is it a temporary peak? We don't know. But the thing about cards is if money is tighter because the stock market takes a hit, a lot of the people who collect vintage cards, let's face it, are not young. And they are pulling a lot of money from their stock portfolio in their retirement years. And that is how they're using some of their money for their cards. And if all of a sudden there starts to be a slump in the stock market, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's the premise of the question. Then what could happen is it could affect the card market. It could affect the vacation industry. It could affect dining industries. It could affect all of that stuff that isn't like your electric bill, right? So it's a great question. We'll talk about it tonight. And the part that I'm most interested in hearing about is the last part of that question where it says, well, if that's the case, if that were to happen, what are you all going to do? What are you all going to do? Is it going to affect your buying? Is it going to affect your selling? Is it going to affect the amount of your buying or your selling? How much of our collectability within this hobby, which is all it is, remember, this is just a hobby, how much of that is going to be affected by the market? Not a lot of channels get into the economics of what's happening in the greater overall economy, but things happening with the stock market do directly affect this hobby amongst a few other hobbies. Now, something people don't talk about a lot is the price of gold is absolutely on fire. It is really, really high. And people say, well, who cares? Okay, people want gold more. Is it that people are are more in demand for gold and precious metals like gold, silver, all that stuff. Is that what it is? Is that there's a greater demand, or is it that it takes more dollars to buy the same amount of gold? Is the cost of an ounce of gold doubled over the last 5, 6, 7 years because more people want gold, or because our dollar isn't going as far? And if it takes twice as many dollars to buy the same ounce of gold, and then we see prices in cards going way up, and people are like, the prices are out of control, we're in a bull market. The cost of this card used to be $5,000 and now it's $8,000. Is it that the demand for that card went up? Is it that more people are wanting that card? Or is it the same thing that's happening with gold, that more dollars are required to buy that same card because the amount of value that each dollar can purchase has dropped? We'll talk about some of that tonight. We'll talk about what next moves will happen tonight. But it's definitely something to consider. And John Mangini did a great job kind of sharing that in his episode last week. This is a great question. This is a topic I'm super interested to hear these guys' thoughts on. Is it the economy? Is it the value of the dollar? Is it really peaking? What is really happening? But more importantly, what are our next moves as a result if things were to go one way or the other?
About what I want to hear from the live show? Tell me about your favorite non-sport or non-baseball, basketball, football, soccer card.
I love this question because I love non-sport cards, and I know a lot of people who watch this channel and watch YouTube channels are primarily focused on sports cards, especially on baseball cards. But if you haven't really noticed, or you're not paying attention to it, the value of non-sport cards has absolutely skyrocketed in the last year and a half, 2 years. They have gone crazy. And I used the example, and it was even in the preview episode, earlier of tonight's live stream. And it's something that we'll definitely bring up tonight. And I want to pick these guys' brains on it, because all three of these guys are primarily sports card collectors, almost not exclusively, but almost exclusively baseball. But at the same time, there's this segment of the hobby, the non-sport segment, that has gone crazy. I shared recently that my Blackbeard card that I talked about, the Blackbeard card that I have in a PSA 2, I bought it about a year ago, just about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, for $420. An SGC2, mine's a PSA 2, an SGC2 sold about 2 weeks ago for $3,300. So in about a year, my PSA 2 was $420. This SGC2 that had some significant chipping on his face and stuff sold for $3,300 in auction. And I mentioned also that there was a PSA 3 that sold a few, I guess it was a month ago, because it was from the last live stream, that clip that I talked about, for $5,000. So a PSA 3 a month ago sold for $5,000. An SGC2 just sold for $3,300, but a year ago I bought mine for $420. There's something happening, and when you're talking about like an 8x of a card, 8x the value of a card in a year, there aren't a lot of cards that have 8x. There are a lot of cards that have gone up. There are a lot of $1,000 cards that have become $3,000 cards, or $5,000 cards that have become $7,000 cards. But there aren't a lot of $5,000 cards that have become $40,000 cards. There are not a lot of $8,000 cards that become $65,000 cards. There's something happening there. So I at least want to bring the topic up about, have these guys considered looking at something between sports? And I know, Greg. Oh, Greg, you're talking about value, how much the card has gone up. Well, yeah, but the value is also representative of the demand. For a card to 8x in a year, that means the demand needs to have seriously gone up. So if there's a segment of our hobby that has had that much of a demand increase, I'm curious what the other guys think about it. So we'll absolutely talk about that tonight. And I've asked each of them to share a picture with me of their favorite non-sport card. So that'll be fun as well.
And this one says, with the negative we already know about with PSA or auction houses, what could be a concrete plan that we collectors could rally around and actually organize a movement to get on the same page with? A lot of people have been starting to downsize their collection and have been using auction houses, eBay, etc. to sell. With the rise of shill bidding and shady characters as of late, is anyone going to change their strategy to selling their cards? Also, what is the group looking forward to or avoiding going into next year? A similar question says, I think Shillgate should be a signal for all of us to push to eliminate shill bidding in the auctions, in eBay, and wherever we choose to do our buying. How do we as a community get our voices heard on this issue?
All right. I have said my whole week last week, my whole week was trying to say, we know that we have some issues. There's a very bright light that has been shined on the issues in the hobby, and we're all well aware. And the horse has been dead. The horse has been beaten repeatedly over and over and over about these topics, about shill bidding, about auction houses, all of that kind of stuff. And the whole point of my episodes last week, and if you haven't checked them out, some of the best conversations I've had about the hobby with some great guys last week. Joe Perot, Chris Hoge of Card Ladder, who we went into the reliability of values and comps right now, and the best way in the current environment to comp cards. Jeremy Lee, who is writing a book about this whole topic in auction houses. And then my boy Darren, who will be back tonight. We had our off topic and we went into some of these things. We know that there are issues. And the question and the focus that I have at this point, well, some people continue to talk about the issues. I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about the issues. And there are different channels with different themes and different goals and different topics. And we all get to choose what we do and don't want to watch. So people can make videos on whatever they want. I'm totally cool with it. But for me, the vein in which I want to talk about these topics at this point is, now what? Now, where do we go from here? What changes are we making? And were three great comments that we just got there. And a couple of those themes being, with the auction house issues, with the shill bidding issues, with more of the rules and regulations coming to light about the different auction houses, is it going to change behavior of my three guests? Now, my three guests are active buyers on auction houses, especially Tony and Petty. And so are the revelations that have recently come out about auction houses, about shill bidding, about what is a true comp versus not a true comp, what adjustments do you make? Because I think a lot of us are sitting there going, what do I believe now? And when I talked to Hoge last week of Card Ladder, I said, so what are you guys at Card Ladder doing about this? and what should we do to determine a comp? And when I talked to Jeremy Lee, it was, tell me more about the auction houses. Tell me more about the rules that they have. And again, I think for the first time, a lot of people are starting to actually look at the rules of auction houses and the differences from one to the next. Here's my thought. It's good to know what others are doing and for us to come together and brainstorm ideas on A, how to move forward in the new current environment, and then B, what can we do together? Is there something that the community can do? Because you guys know I'm all about community. You know that I'm all about fostering relationships and inclusiveness within other people in the hobby. That if there's any goal that I have had, if there's anything I want you to think about when you think about me, is it doesn't matter if you have a channel or don't have a channel, you have a voice here. And what can we do by putting our collective voices together to start to advocate for us collectors? Right now, to me, it feels like the auction houses work exclusively for the consignor. Their number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs are to get the consignor as much money as possible. They're not looking out. This is just my perspective. And I shouldn't say the auction houses. A lot of the auction houses, it feels like they care about the consignor only. But there are some auction houses that seem to care about the bidder as well, that seem to care about the collector like us. And the ones that don't seem to value us, the ones that don't seem to value the collector, is there something we can do? We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about what we can do, how we should move forward. Whenever there is a transformational moment with anything, it changes the situation from that point forward. It changes the game. Imagine it wasn't that long ago that basketball added a three-point line. Now look at the game of basketball now and imagine the current game of basketball and how it is played without a three-point line. Again, it was within my lifetime, I believe, if not my lifetime, just before my lifetime, that was introduced. And now it feels like they only shoot threes. The game changed when the rules changed and people became more aware of the magnitude of the rule change. We now are in an environment where I feel like we're more aware of the rules. So what are we going to do about it? I want to talk to the guys tonight because I don't want to just harp on the situation. I'm sure there will be some harping. I'm sure there will be some complaining. But I also want to hear, where do we go from here? That's what I want to know. Where do we go from here? What changes are they making? What changes should we all be making? And what can we do as a collective group? Let's continue the brainstorming process of how to start to work together, collaborate, form and unite in an effort to actually have all of that auction houses care about the bidder and not just the seller, instead of just some of the auction houses caring about the bidder. It's going to be a fun night. I really hope that you join me. Now, before I get into the preview of Wednesday's episode, I want to ask the question for next week, because I've said this 4 times today already. I will continue to repeat myself. I want to know how to move forward. And the question that I have for this coming week is actually very similar to a question I asked a couple of months ago. But I feel like the place that the hobby is at right now is very different than where we thought we were a couple of months ago. So with the current environment in which we now currently reside in this hobby, my question for next week for all of you is as follows. Wave your magic wand and make one change in the new hobby landscape. What would you change? That's my question. Again, I asked this question a couple of weeks ago. If you could change one thing about the hobby, what would you change? And a lot of people weighed in with some really great comments. But now I think we're realizing that there's more shill bidding than we realized. People are wondering what's believable for a comp and what's not believable for a comp. I think that people are realizing some of the actual rules and regulations of the auction houses are not what we sort of thought that they were. We thought that the auction house rules were all pretty similar to what eBay does, and they're not. So you get to wave your magic wand, and you get to make a change to improve things. What is the change you're going to make to improve things for this hobby moving forward? I hope that you join us tonight, but first, how about a preview of Wednesday's long-awaited episode? These are kind of, junk wax type stuff, not a ton of value. He was hoping maybe there might be like a Jordan rookie card or something, or some star cards. There weren't. But then his godfather said, but I do have these other cards from my dad's collection. And then he remembered, oh yeah, I remember something about that. Let's hear the story from him.
And then right at the end, he said, oh, I have this collection that my dad put together, and went into his office and pulled out a little wooden kind of box that said Pimento on the side of it. That was probably from the 20s, or I don't know when he got the box, but it was full of cards, little T206 cards and strip cards, the 1919 to 1920, 22. I don't know when they stopped making them, but in rubber bands that were so old they looked like dried crusted pasta. Honestly, just broke off as I was going through the cards. And when he handed it to me, I was like, yeah, I can tell that there's something here for sure. There's definitely something here. And
this is bonkers. And he said Babe Ruth. He said Joe Jackson. He said Ty Cobb. He said Walter Johnson. He said all the names. And we haven't even seen any of those yet.
And about the 7th or 8th card I found was the red back Ty Cobb card, the portrait. And I was obviously shocked.
And little did I know, the biggest one was next.